Hello, welcome back to my channel where I am talking about coronavirus, the data that I've been keeping track of for the past month and a half. And in the last week, I have started to update the individual countries as well as the global data, which is what have traditionally been, well, traditionally as in like the last 6 weeks, been updating anyway. So let's go through some of that now with this coronavirus pattern spreadsheet, which for convenience is located at coronavirus.doomafood.com. Maybe I'll make a shorter URL as well, because that's actually quite long. So here we go. Let's start off with Spain. I'm not going to go through too many of the countries because this day isn't crazy. It's pretty similar to yesterday, but there's nothing really different here, I think, from the country to country. So we have, so Spain is actually looking like it's got a bit of a decrease, well, quite a significant decrease in the amount of confirmed cases. So the confirmed growth is down quite significantly, but as you can see, it's sort of like seesaws a little bit here. But the deaths are actually up, and the percentage is about the same or a little bit lower though. But I think it's still too early, as I've been reinforcing on this country data, it's still too early to tell with a lot of this death growth percentage rate. But the actual numbers are up a little bit. The total number of deaths, 1,772. And recovered is up almost another 500 again, 2,575. So because your deaths are up and your confirmed cases aren't, that means that this number and this number is going to go up quite a bit. Your WHO death rate, WHO death rate, however you want to say it, and incubation death rate. And yeah, so that's Spain. I just want to address the global data quickly a little bit, and then I'll go into some things in Reddit. Right now, I'll just take a sip of beer though. Okay, there's no editing. So the worse that the coronavirus epidemic gets, the darker my beer gets. So this one today, I have like a barrel-aged bourbon stout, and it's not, honestly, it's not the best. I like my beer a little bit carbonated, but this one's a little bit too, it's purposely not carbonated. So anyway, it took me by surprise. It's almost like medicine. So, whoops, I just kicked over the microphone. And if you see me breathing, so I'm getting a little bit short of breath sometimes, and I don't think it's because I have coronavirus, although I don't know completely because I haven't been tested. But I do get a little bit of asthma in the seasonal changes, and we're going into spring, so yeah, I'm a little bit short of breath from time to time. But until you see me faint, I'm just going to continue giving these. And I probably do have coronavirus. So, but you never be too sure. So anyway, we have had a record number of, unfortunately, confirmed cases going on the global data. It's been another breakout day. The confirmed growth is actually sitting right, it's very similar to yesterday, even though the increase is 34, it's the highest it's ever been at 34,498. The number of deaths has almost gone to 15,000, but it's very similar increase as to yesterday. So thankfully, it's not a record number in the deaths stats, and the actual rate is down to the lowest it's been since 17th of March because of that. So one day a trend doesn't make, but let's see what the next 2 or 3 days in a row bring. And then we got recovered, which puts about, generally, it's probably about the same amount as yesterday. I don't do the increase stat, but it does affect the amount of recovered death rate. And yeah, you can see that that's actually increased because in contrast to the number of deaths, it hasn't gone up as much as the deaths have. So it's increased a little bit to 13.1%. WHO death rate stays about the same, 4.1%. Now, granted, this is still about 10:30 at night. And, I stop updating this at about midnight, and then I give an update on Reddit, and I just give an update like summarizing some of these stats. Some of you might have actually come from Reddit, so if so, hello. And yeah, so I actually, but having said that, I don't expect these numbers to move that much more. Now it was a little bit different when I was tracking this about a month, up to about a month ago. The numbers were changing quite frequently later into the night. So after about 6, 7, 8 p.m., even 9 or 10 p.m., they would change quite a bit because they would mainly be coming from China. But this is almost like a European virus now, or European American. And I'm not really sure if the other countries are just catching up on actually having their test kits available and going into these tests and catching up on the cause of deaths, on maybe some of the fatalities that the countries are just having anyway, and maybe they're not attributing these to coronavirus. But it doesn't make sense that it's primarily just affecting Europeans and Americans right now, and Canadians. And yes, I mean, something is weird going on with the stats, but I think it's mainly because other countries in Southeast Asia and Africa just need to they probably don't have as much testing kits as Europe and North America does. So having said that, let's go into Reddit. So that's the data there anyway. That's my opinion on the data. The update I give on Reddit is less opinionated and more just like a summary of the stats. Okay, so these are some threads on Reddit that caught my attention today. The first one on the Wuhan flu subreddit is, and this is quarantine, so it always comes up with 0 members, but it does get a lot of probably just like some of the most interaction. It links to a article, or it's actually a video once you go into it, from Sky News. China must not be allowed to rewrite history on COVID-19. So I think it goes into some of the propaganda that they're using, trying to sort of cast blame onto the US. And by China, I mean like the CCP, the Communist Party. So it's going to be this, I think you're going to see this the whole time. I don't really think it's going to be resolved quickly as to see how this virus originated. It's going to be this big, long propaganda game. And this person, I think this comment just summarizes a lot of the stuff in the article. I'm not sure I don't think it's on a paywall, but it is a video, so maybe they're just sort of transcribing it or something. China's dishonesty and negligence unleashed COVID-19 on the rest of the world, Outsiders host Rita Panari says. Ms. Panari questioned the decision of China to destroy evidence when it became clear there was an outbreak on their hands. China's initial cover-up included destroying lab samples that established in December the cause of unexplained viral infections in the Hubei province, she said. How many lives would have been saved if China had listened to experts instead of silencing them? Ms. Panani said that it was imperative we do not allow China to rewrite history as it emerges from the other side of the crisis. The Chinese government, this is quote, the Chinese communist regime has, through its ineptitude, dishonesty, and negligence, unleashed a virus that will leave tens of thousands dead and likely cause a global recession, he said. We must not allow this totalitarian regime to rewrite history. So, yeah, that's just a pretty... I mean, if true, these claims are pretty big, that they tampered and destroyed lab samples. I think the world, and I'm just glad that some of the media is chasing this down, because, and if it's a conspiracy, but really, we have to figure out where this came from. Okay, so next thing that caught my attention was on coronavirus FOSS, coronavirus freedom of speech subreddit. Brazilians protest against the coronavirus by ... getting together in a crowd. This is just one of these takes, but a lot of the comments is just saying, how can you protest against virus? Virus is going to go viral. So it's kind of, some people kind of joking around, but the OP is actually saying this is not a joke. Actually happened days ago in a small town in the northeast region. Now this ties in with partly why this caught my attention is this ties in with something I saw on Twitter, in that it was actually a video feed of, I think it was like 750 prisoners broke out and were literally running down the street from this Brazilian prison, and it all started from them protesting the conditions of the prison with the coronavirus outbreak. So they took some of the guards hostage, I think, and then somehow started this whole outbreak situation. And not an outbreak of the virus, but an outbreak of the prison. But so yeah, Brazil, I'm not sure what's going on there. Interesting stuff. Prison breakouts, protesters against, maybe they're actually protesting against the prisoners. I'm not sure. So this is something on CV News subreddit. Dr. CZ, I'm not the greatest at speaking French, excuse me. So some doctor heard a flatten the curve and stopped the spread, 2 hashtags that are trending. While this is the graphic everyone needs to understand, we all have to change our behavior now. So wash your hands and stay physically distant. Even better, stay home. Please share. And this graphic, I think, is just a short GIF, and it's really just like, I think it's very quick, and it's very quick at just ramming the point home about how valuable it is just to quarantine yourself and maintain social physical distancing, whatever they're calling it now. So yeah, you can see, I'm pretty sure you'd be able to see that on my screen share, but it's pretty cool. Just gives a graphical representation about how many people are actually not going to be affected just from various points in the chain of people, in the chain of not exposing themselves. So this next one is from the Wuhan flu subreddit again, and it's a thread saying, just went to the park wearing a surgical mask and gloves, quite crowded, nobody wearing a mask, and a few comments about how masks don't work and you shouldn't be wearing them as I passed by. The quote experts and adults in the room in the West have doomed the gullible normies. So somebody is just, I think, I'm seeing this a little bit in that some people are saying that, I guess somebody, it's another account of somebody saying that other people aren't taking this seriously. There was this other instance that I heard where somebody on a bus was wearing a mask and someone else was asking them to take off the mask and they weren't maintaining a safe distance, so they were asking them, the person with the mask was asking them to maintain a safe distance, and the offender was just saying, no, I don't believe in this stuff, and just kept on going into a space. So yeah, it's like, you're not really going to have everyone on board with this, but I think it's kind of dangerous if there's always going to be, the, what do you call it, class clown, or the bad minority of people that don't really, sort of toe the line, I guess, and take one for the team. And I guess if it becomes worse, then it's because of this sort of minority of disbelievers, I guess, that is gonna it's gonna sort of fasten any support for martial law or anything. So yeah, I think it's important to sort of, it always catches my attention. I think it's like just interesting just to note the tendencies, the cultural aspects about how our lives are changing. I'm kind of interested in that aspect as well as the data, and so I like these kind of accounts, but it's also, I think, important to actually spread these accounts out so people know that not everyone's taking them seriously, so they know that there's still work to do on just spreading the word on how dangerous this thing is. So over to Twitter. Okay, so Lisa Abramovitz, she's a journalist at Bloomberg, and I follow her. So she said something about, this is earlier in the day. Okay, Trump has joined Democrats demanding that any government aid to corporations come back with new restrictions on the stock buybacks. So she doesn't really tweet much about politics. She's mainly about finance news and that's why I follow her, and I trust a lot of the Bloomberg reporters. Actually, a lot of them, to actually give them props, they do a pretty commendable job of actually just talking about politics when it interferes the market, and therefore you can really get this objective viewpoint in. So even if you're into politics and you're looking for an objective viewpoint, try watching Bloomberg live in the mornings. And yeah, you might be surprised. It's actually got some good objective takes. So anyway, she's saying that, noting that some of the Democrats and Trump has come together now because they agree on this point of restricting the stock buybacks. And I think this is in relation to bailouts in particular. So if corporations are gonna receive any government bailouts or any kind of funding to save them from the economic collapse, then a lot of those corporations would tend to reinvest it back into stock buybacks. But Trump is really against that, and that's sort of less. I guess that's traditionally less of a Republican take, because Republicans aren't really in the business of, mostly not in the business of actually regulating the market. But it's good that they're actually just sort of, he's sort of creating these, wants it to be conditional, because I think part of the outcry of the whole 2008, 2009 recession and the bailout there was that this money was just given to the biggest offenders, the biggest causes of this economic collapse, and it was given to the owners of the corporations for them to have a free-for-all, and the workers were the ones that suffered. So next one, somebody commented on something to do with Italy. So read this. Check this out. Last week alone, 400 people died in Bergamo and 12 neighbouring towns. 4 times the number who died the same week the previous year, according to the Bergamo Mayor's Office. Only 91 of those had tested positive for the virus. So basically saying that only out of the 400 people that died, only 91 of them would have been included in the coronavirus stats. So even though there's an increase of people dying, they're only really including these numbers in the coronavirus deaths if they test for it positively before they die. That doesn't make sense. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, this is my problem with giving this analysis here, and I don't really want to go into the whole why discussion points here. I just want to mainly just alert people to the actual points that are being discussed and the data on the spreadsheet. But yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to test someone for it, just like after they've died. But, so apparently, and we all have our suspicions that some countries are actually not attributing the cause of death to coronavirus, but there's something else like pneumonia, and they think it's unrelated, and they don't. And this is skewing the data that we have. But apparently Italy's doing it too, so there's no real country out there. There's a minority of countries that are actually, I think, that we can trust with this data. And Italy, the majority of the data might be correct, but also it helps to take everything with a grain of salt too. Next one, Ridger Fedese, she quite often gives humorous takes, but I don't know, maybe she's half serious here. We're all going to die because McDonald's is closing shop. So McDonald's announced today an update. They're actually shutting down every store in the UK and Ireland at 7 p.m. tomorrow, on Monday the 23rd. So it's going to be funny. I wonder if I haven't been to McDonald's in many years. I think I actually have like a streak of, I can figure out the exact date later, but it's like 7 or 8 years since I haven't even stepped into the store. But I used to eat it a lot when I was younger. But yeah, it's like, I'm just wondering if there's going to be a rush in the McDonald's tomorrow before everything shuts at 7. Should be funny to check out, at least anyway. But it's, this is serious. I've never seen anything like this before. The whole McDonald's franchise just shut down in the UK and Ireland. So perhaps that'll come to the States as well, and to Canada. I don't know. So there might be more chains, more franchises might actually follow So who knows? This news changes daily. This is why, all could kind of like start with this, and then everything else shuts down. So it's just a word, I guess, just to sort of, if you haven't practiced your home cooking skills now, definitely do it, because it's probably going to help you in the next few weeks, at least anyway, if more of these places close. And the final thing that caught my eye is that every single one of these spring breakers returning from Florida should be quarantined so they don't spread coronavirus to their parents, grandparents, and neighbors, jeopardizing their lives and undermining all the efforts nationwide to flatten the curve. So, yeah, spring breakers have been in the news, or the Twitter sphere and the Reddit sphere, for pretty much the whole week. But apparently, on a serious note, a lot of them are returning this week. So, just sort of, I guess, if you're not practicing social distancing and self-quarantining now, don't really go out in the next week, especially when a lot of these people are returning there, because there's probably going to be a lot more germs flying around than usual. Okay, so that's my take for tonight, and I will do this again about the same time tomorrow night. Okay, thanks, bye, stay safe.